Hey, thank you so much for being with us on the program, Colin. Now, we are seeing a group of Bolsonaro supporters gather protesting the election results. Do you think that Bolsonaro will finally concede defeat in front of that crowd?
Well, maybe he hasn't even made up his mind yet. I think he's been watching what the situation on the streets is like before he decides what sort of line to take. And of course, this creates a very uncertain situation because I think people on the streets are waiting for a lead from him. So, in order to decide what to do next, and you can block the roads for a while, but there is an order now from the Supreme Court to the police to clear the roadblocks. And if they don't carry this out, there'll be massive fines, including for the
Right.
head of the police force. So I think it's still a very uncertain situation. It's not clear at all what Bolsonaro is going to say.
Well, we're going to definitely keep a close eye on that. Now, we are seeing a return of the left to power. How do you think people feel about Silva being the next president of Brazil, especially after serving 2 times as the president of Brazil successfully?
Well, in very different circumstances, of course. At that time, when in the early years of the century, when he was president for the first couple of terms, there was a great commodities boom, and Brazil was there was lots of money floating around which he could redistribute, and he did that very successfully. Now the situation is very different, and the country is far more polarized. I mean, the vote was almost 50-50. It was only a
Right.
difference of a couple of million votes. So I think he's going to find it very difficult. He'll have to try and build a coalition
Right.
to his government some kind of stability.
We are seeing a very divided Brazil. His victory was by a narrow margin, Silva winning by 50.9% of the vote and Bolsonaro receiving 49.10% of the vote. How do you think he's going to reunite the nation?
Well, with difficulty. I mean, the first task he has is to try and get along with Congress. I mean, assuming he does, he is inaugurated in January. And until January, Bolsonaro is still the president, of course, worth bearing in mind. Um, the Congress is much more powerful than it used to be in relation to the president, and he's going to find it very difficult dealing with them. The opposition, the Bolsonarista opposition, has a majority in both houses. And he's going to find it very tricky to try and negotiate with them. Some of them, I think, will be prepared to negotiate. Others most certainly won't. And on the Bolsonaro side, there are some people who regard him as a threat to civilization, to the Christian religion, and so on. And they will be very intransigent, one imagines. But the opposition will be divided to some extent as well. So that may make things slightly easier, but it's going to be a tough time.
Right. And meanwhile, Colin, environmentalists will be watching Silva's administration closely as it assumes not only governance over the Brazilian nation, but over the planet's largest forest reserves. Do you think that he's going to make serious pledges in combating climate change?
Well, he already has. I mean, he said that there's going to be zero deforestation during his time. Bolsonaro systematically dismantled the agencies which protected the Amazon and protected the indigenous people who live there. This has all been run down, their budgets have been cut and so on. A lot of people have been made redundant. Bolsonaro made it quite clear that his policy was to exploit the Amazon rather than protect it. Lula has already said in his acceptance speech that this is going to change completely, that he's going to build up the protections again and defend native peoples. But that'll be tricky. I mean, it's easier said than done, and the loggers and the ranchers in the Amazon region are often heavily armed and extremely committed to defending their interests. So there's going to be tough times ahead there as well.
There is indeed. Colin Harding, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour. It was a pleasure speaking to you.